Right, it's like up to 32 people now, Sandy, so we're at pretty good capacity for a very beautiful day.
Yeah, let's go ahead and get started, I guess. Is Kelly going to do the roll call?
Yep. We can just do the, everybody can mute themselves just so we don't have background noise. That'd probably be good. And then Kelly can do roll call.
No, Brad's not able to join us. Charlie,
Yep, yo.
Christina. I don't see her. Connie,
I'm here.
Daniel Brown,
Dan's here.
Daniel Burlingame, David Norwood, David Quinn,
Yep, I'm here.
Elizabeth, Gail. I'm not even going to pronounce your last name. She's here.
Yes,
Gail-
I'm here.
Gail
Gail
Dugan,
Mansowitz. Yep.
Jeffrey Dutton, Jeremy Welsh, Joe,
I'm here.
Justin, Ken Harvey, Laura Ogar, Leah, Lynn McIntosh,
I'm here.
Margaret,
Hey, if you passed me, I'm Bill Barnett. I'm here. I didn't hear it. If you're using one names, everybody's name sounds like Bill for some reason tonight.
I don't think I've gotten to you. Margaret,
Well, that's good because I thought you were going alphabetically.
yeah, I don't know why you're not on there. We'll see. I'll add you if you're missing for some reason. Margaret, Mary,
I'm here.
Pam, Patty,
I'm here.
Richard Burns,
Here.
Rick Radisky, I think he's not able to join us. Bob Pataki, Andy,
I'm here.
Shalene, Stacy Taylor, Teresa,
I'm here.
Tony,
I'm here.
Tyler.
Yes, here.
There you are, Bill. Bill Creel.
Thank you.
All right.
All right. Want me to take it from there?
Yep.
I guess I will. Well, thank you everyone for coming on what finally seems like nice weather. But so I appreciate your dedication to this. I guess we'll just start out with some subcommittee reports. So I don't know who is here with the engaging the subcommittee or engaging the public subcommittee. Was there anyone able to jump on that and do that meeting today?
Yes.
All
Yeah,
right.
there were a few of us, actually. Thank you to those who attended. And I just wanted to say that in the announcements that Kelly sent out earlier today, Rick Radisky had done an evaluation of the report, or a report on the meeting, the focus group meeting that had happened on April 26th between the focus group that was a presentation by Eagle and MPART, and other agencies also participated, I believe. And it just does talk about the Eagle Ottawa situation and updated us on the type of presentation and man hours that was involved in that process. Rick Radisky did send the briefing and also the slides that were involved in that. So Kelly did send those out this afternoon, if you haven't had a chance to watch it. In this presentation, a baseline environmental assessment was done for the property because of a sale and transfer of 2 large farms. High concentrations of PFAS above 200,000 parts per trillion was found in the soil, and shallow groundwater tested between 200 and 1,800 parts per trillion of PFOA. Residents were notified approximately 30 days after the investigation began. We will be discussing this later in the meeting, but it was a feeling of the subcommittee that just met prior to this meeting that residents should be notified at the start of the investigation and have access to the same data as they make, so they can make an informed decision. Connie also reported that through the federal infrastructure bill, there will be $50 billion available for multiple uses, including work involving PFAS and other emerging contaminants. And it was also expressed in tonight's meeting that the investigation of the Eagle Ottawa site needs to continue regarding receiving surface water bodies, as well as testing fish and possibly other wildlife. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary. I know there's going to be more discussion about the Eagle Ottawa study later. That was a
Yep.
good review for it. So anybody got questions or comments or?
May I ask a question?
Yes.
So, you said we received a summary of the evaluation and we should be able to view it at our leisure with slides?
Yes, it was included in when Kelly sent out the information for today's meeting, but I don't think it went out until like 2:30 or so. Is that right, Kelly?
Yeah, right around there.
Yeah,
Okay, I'll
I
check.
think we were also later in getting it to Kelly, so that was not Kelly's fault.
Okay, because I did go back and I don't think I saw it, so I'll look in my spam and see if it went there.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think Lynn McIntosh had said she had a problem with it earlier as well, so.
Okay, and my other question was, you said that there's 50 billion available for cleanup for PFAS and other chemicals?
No, it's 50 billion for the whole project, but it is for multiple uses, and part of those uses is involving the PFAS work. But there are many other things involved, including water infrastructure for clean water.
Okay, and my last question, with there being assessment of these 2 farms, and they found that it was 200,000 parts per trillion of PFAS and 200 parts per trillion of PFOS, will that money be available ASAP to assist those farms with that? Anything or any help with that goes directly to those farms?
I would not have knowledge of that. Hopefully, if Abby or anybody else from the agencies are able to speak to that, I'm not sure.
Teresa, this is Connie. What I think has to happen is that the people that bought that contaminated property from the tannery, they become the potentially responsible party. So I think Eagle will tag them. I think, what was it, Lear Seed Company or something like that?
Yep, Lear Mexican Seeding.
Yeah, they would be the ones that would have to pay the bill.
Yeah, so let's just clarify that and we can go into this more here in a little bit, but the company that bought out Eagle Ottawa Leather, the actual company itself, the successor corporation would have retained liability. The corporation who bought the farm did a BEA and so therefore doesn't have liability. So they have other obligations, but they don't have obligations for cleanup. So we're going to continue to do our normal regulatory oversight and process for following up the trail for the responsible parties.
Thank you.
Okay, Lynn McIntosh, you have your hand up?
Yes, I will be brief. This is something I'd like to bring up during the public notification, but it is something that I feel is important, especially with Mary leading the meeting and you're being there, Sandy, also, is how are we going to be able to vote on matters that we feel are really important going forward? And for example, I'm not glad to bring this up, but I feel like I would like the COG to save money, be able to use it for things like this. Personally, I feel this way. And perhaps consider the idea of using the facilitator that we've had, who's been wonderful and very capable, but with the leadership of the CAWG now, I think, wow, could some of that money, could it just be limited to a 6-month term, and we could use that money for things like this, which seems so important. And I know it's not necessarily an important, it seems maybe like a side issue, but on the other hand, it shows the importance for us as a group to be able to vote and make decisions together. And I'm concerned that we don't have that in place yet. And I think that's an important thing to do as we go forward. And it relates to everything else that we talk about.
Lynn, that's that's an important point. And in fact, Mary and Rick and I talked about it, I think last week. Well, Mary and I talked about it and Rick jumped in, the need to develop some kind of system for voting and getting consensus on things. So you're, as always, right ahead of your time. And I think we'll add that as a agenda item and talk about that maybe towards the end. Would that be okay? To get a
Yeah, no, that's great. I just wanted to put it out there forward, just because, yeah, it does. And I'll let the table go back. But thank you.
Sandy, I would just like to say that I really back everything that Lynn just said. And the other thing is most other boards and nonprofits use Robert's Rules of Order, and that's very simple to do. You just take your number of members first and do a simple majority, or if it's a really difficult topic, do 2/3 majority. Thanks.
All right, Charlie, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, thanks, Sandy. I would also like to second what Lynn said and heartily endorse it. Thank you.
All right. Can I ask which part you were heartily endorsing? The need to develop a system for voting and getting consensus.
Yes.
All right.
Yes. Sorry.
No, that sounds good.
Oh, it was.
Mary, you've got your hand up.
I would also endorse what Lynn said, but I would endorse both parts as far as the voting as well as possibly using the funding from the facilitator for the next 6 months for other issues. Thank you.
All right. So I think this is really good. And I think we all agree we've got to have a system of getting decisions. I want to make sure we get through all of our agenda before we get to that topic and don't get sidetracked. So is that all right with people if we move on so we can get to some of this other stuff and then use the last part of the meeting to talk about voting and that piece? Because you're right, that is a pretty important piece. Would that be all right? Can people do some thumbs up or something? I see Teresa's got some, I can't see everybody, so I don't know.
This is Gail. But if we're going to discuss things, shouldn't we do that on the front end? Because then how are we going to make a decision on the discussion?
That's a good point. The only problem is we're going to run out of time.
Yeah. I thought we had already discussed this, but evidently not.
Evidently
I
not.
thought we were, yeah.
All right, Lynn, do you still have your hand up or you want to move along?
I don't want to move along because this is one of the situations where sometimes what seems urgent, actually like what we have to cover in the meeting, gets ahead of what's important. And we need to make this important. So I'm fine moving along as long as this isn't just like tacked on to the end. And then we say, okay, so next meeting we'll talk about how to vote. I feel it's important enough that we have to keep that in mind. That's all, Sandy. That's my caveat.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'm hearing a lot of people say they feel that this is very important. So we could take 15 minutes right now and discuss it and come up with a system if you want. Would that work? And again, I can't see anybody, so I have no idea how we're going to vote, but I'm open to ideas.
That would be fun. That's fine.
All right. I wish I could see people. Is there a way that I could see if people have their thumbs up or something reactions? I can't see everybody, so. I'm just guessing you all are making hand gestures at me, and I suspect I know what those gestures are, but I see Teresa. I see another person whose face I can't see. All right, I'm gonna, so, open up the floor then. We're gonna go off topic. We're gonna go rogue. Let's figure out how we're going to do a voting system. I did hear concerns in the past that there are members of the COG who can't be here on this night, and I worry that their votes are not going to be considered. So I just want to throw that out there, but I'm going to be quiet and just call on people as people figure out a system for voting. All I want is a system for voting.
Sandy, do you want Kelly to take the slide down so you can see everybody's face?
That would be great. Yes.
And then if everybody turns their camera on, maybe that would be helpful if you've got a way to do that.
Their camera on or even their thumb. Yeah, there we go. Okay, now I can kind of see a lot of people. Some of you are bigger than others. I don't know why. Oh, look at, did Kelly do that? Put this forms up? Jeez Louise. Okay, so open it up. Who wants to start talking about systems for voting?
Okay, this is Gail. I have a question. How many members are there?
30 some, but on any given night, we have 15 to 20 that are here.
Okay, first we have to decide what a quorum will be for voting purposes.
There's 35 members total.
All right. Lynn and Mary have their hands up and Connie has her hands up. So Lynn, take it away. Quick and easy.
Okay, yeah, I just put a hat on because I wasn't prepared to be on camera, but I will do it for you all tonight. I think I'm on here somewhere. No, I'm not. Here I am. Somewhere. Okay, here I am. This is what I do when I don't have time to do my hair.
So what are you thinking for voting?
This is what I think, okay? I think we did it successfully with voting for leaders. It worked. I remember 3 people oversaw that vote and it included everybody. So I don't know if that's a basis to start from, even though it may not be a perfect start. Of course, you want to include the people. There must be a way to get a vote from the people as part of the meeting. And it could be a thumbs up, but then an email could be sent for other people to respond. So it's inclusive. That seems like a possible starting point.
Okay, Mary, your ideas.
I am just wondering if, because I agree with you that if people are not able to attend a particular meeting, but they feel strongly about a topic, that they should be able to vote. I'm wondering if there's how people feel about a proxy type of vote, where if somebody does not, is not able to attend, that they might be able to pass their vote to another person to vote for them. And other than that, I like Connie's idea about going with Robert's Rules of Order.
All right. Connie, your idea. Connie Boris in the house.
I'm sorry. We follow Robert's Rules of Order. So somebody makes a motion. For example, I would say, I move that the COG adopt Robert's Rules of Order. That's it. Then Mary Blanchard says, I second it. Then there's discussion. Everybody chimes in saying, oh, it's a crazy idea. Oh, it's a good idea, whatever. And then you as chair call for a vote. And you say all in favor, and everybody would say aye or raise their hand. Anybody say no, then they'll say no. And then Mary's idea about people that can't be there, they need to send in before the meeting a signed proxy. I, Connie, cannot attend the meeting tonight. I give my proxy to Teresa Landrum, all right? She then votes on my behalf, in addition to herself. So it's simple. And who wins? If you got 32 members, 16 plus 1. That's a simple majority. 17 people would have to approve that motion for that motion to pass. Okay? So it's simple. That's why everybody follows Robert's Rules of Order.
Okay.
Okay.
So is there other people, because we've had some people kind of taking this conversation. Are there other people that haven't spoke yet that have ideas about voting and how to do it? Daniel Brown says, I'm okay with proxy. As long as we have an email record, I think we're okay. Other people with ideas that haven't spoken up yet. Don't make me call on you like we're in school. So,
Does it look like Gail has her hand up?
yes, I was trying to get some other folks in. Gail, go ahead. Nobody else wants to talk, I guess.
Okay, I am seconding the Robert's Rule of Order, and I'm glad she suggested how to do the quorum, because that's what I couldn't figure out. And I think that's the most simplest, because everyone's really familiar with it. Most of us have been to like a city council meeting or a school board meeting, and so we're all very familiar with that. And I think that would be a wonderful way to do it. That's all I was going to say.
All right. So, what do we, Charlie?
Yeah, I'm in favor of Robert's Rules of Order. Thank you.
Tony?
I think adopting that is a really good idea. I think that one thing we might have to think about if it's going to be if action to approve any measure is going to require more than half of the entire membership of the COG, is to make sure that we really know what the entire membership of the COG is. I know we've gone through this before. Maybe we figured that out, but we could put ourselves in a position where nothing can get done because there are people who just aren't participating. So I just throw that out there. Don't want to throw a monkey wrench into things. I just throw that out there as something to consider.
I'm raising my hand. That was my concern too, is that I think we have people that, what do we do if they don't send a proxy or something comes up that we haven't? Yeah, I just think there could be, my suggestion would be we do it with the majority of who's here unless someone has sent a proxy. So, so I don't know what we do next. Mary and Lynn, are your hands up again, or are you just
Nope.
working out?
Sorry, sorry.
I agree with your concern, Sandy, about if we do not reach a quorum. That's why I'm kind of wondering if we need to do a proxy with the simple majority of the people attending the meeting or something like that, if that's possible. Because I think that there are consistently members who do not join. And, you know, if they're not joining on a regular basis, they're not going to be hearing the options as well. So that's only my question.
Okay, Charlie.
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in on that. I agree with what Mary said and in the general thread here that we're talking about. We don't have, you know, the membership is open. People decide, you know, whether they're going to participate or not for any given meeting or in general over time. And we need to have a method of voting that we're not held hostage by people who are non-participants. Thank you.
Okay, Connie?
No, we need some real life data here. Kelly or Abby should tell us the number of members of the COG. We should know that like right now. Are there 32? Are there 38? How many are there?
Connie, I said there are 35.
Okay, there's 35. So we're looking at what, 19 people then for voting? If we take a vote on Robert's Rules of Order, we would need 19 people to vote today. And how many do we have on, how many people are there right now on this meeting?
There were 15 at roll call.
15?
Yep.
Mhm.
All right, well, that kind of blows it for the simple majority.
This is Pam Queer. What about the people that are joining by phone tonight?
Pam, you're here. I think we did roll call before you may have signed in.
Yeah. So what about the people that are joining on the phone?
Good point. Charlie, your hand's up again.
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly respond. I'm assuming there's quite a few of those people in that list of 32 that are with Eagle or other entities, organizations. And so the actual COG representation is considerably smaller than shown in this listing here. And then my second, well, I have a question. And are we bound by any quorum requirements for this vote?
I don't know. Anybody know the answer to that? I'm guessing no one knows.
I don't know how we could, I don't know how we could be. There's no rules in place.
Yes, we're the ones making the rules.
So I hate to do this, but I would suggest we have a small group of people that get together and make the rules and decide how we're going to do this rather than try to hurry and do it tonight when we have some important things on the agenda. I mean, that's just my thought. Or we could throw something together for tonight. But
Sandy, this is Pam. I think what you just said is the right thing to do. I think you need to put a little bit of time to it and think about what's the right way to do it rather than just be Johnny on the spot.
Lynn and then Charlie.
Yeah, I agree too. I just think we need to hop on it. I think forming a committee is a good idea. We just got to get it done. and figure it out. I don't think it's a good idea to just quickly throw it together. But I think it's important not to tack it on at the end when we're tired and we're not as fresh. That's all. But I think we ought to have it in place as soon as possible and make it important. I think a lot of the ideas could be put together. I don't even know why you couldn't do for people calling in, you could just do the roll call. Yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, it wouldn't take that long. We do it for the roll call and we could give people plenty of time to know that a vote is coming. We're going to be voting on these issues. You might want to read this first. No, this is how you do it by proxy. This is how you do it at the meeting. I don't know, but I like your, yeah, we can form a meeting.
Okay. Bill Barnett.
I had a proposal, it would just be a super majority of those members present that are listed members of the committee, since our attendance is not always super. That would be 2/3 of, like, if there's 15, then it would take 10 votes to pass something. That's just a proposal, sort of a settlement and offer in the middle. So we're not requiring what Robert's rules would, which I think would figure out what the whole board is, and then it would need to be a majority. So if it's 35, I would see that as 18 as being the number of votes needed. And if there's only 15 of us, we couldn't take action on that night. We could set our own bylaws that could be less than a quorum. And one idea would be to have a super majority of those present and that are members. So if there's 15, we could pass something tonight doing 10. It's hard to make any bylaws tonight when we're less than the majority of our board, though. I think the fallback and de facto position could be Robert's rules if we were looking to take formal action tonight. So with that said, I'm just throwing out a settlement offer of super majority of those present, which is 2/3. It's sort of a higher number than just 51%.
Thank you, Bill. I think that's another good idea. I would suggest we do this because we've spent our 15 minutes. I would suggest that we get a committee together that works on this in the next week or two so that we have something. And I think a lot of this would probably have to go by email. So do I have anybody who would like to lead this committee? I'm going to call on who's ever got their hand up, which will be Gail, if you're not here.
Yeah, I'm putting it down. I'm in the middle of trying to get 2 jobs right now, so yeah,
Okay.
I can't.
Is there someone that can
run
lead this committee? Connie? Connie, I know you've talked about voting for a while. Connie Boris, would you be willing to?
I'd be willing if some other people join.
Is there other people that would be willing to
I
help?
just don't want to leave.
I would be willing to join as well. Mary.
Okay.
And
Yeah, I
Dan.
would join also. This is Charlie.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Hey.
And me as well. I don't know if you heard that. Gail. Okay.
So I hear Gail, I hear Mary, I hear Charlie. Did I hear somebody else? All right, and Connie. And anyone else who wants to join, Connie will send out an email. All right, that was good. I think we need to come up with something moving forward. So thank you for doing that. And I think you were right, Len, not to put it at the end. So let's go back quickly to subcommittee things. Website review subcommittee. Is there anyone here for that?
They didn't meet today.
Okay. That's quick. Prevention measure subcommittee.
Yeah, we had a meeting on last Thursday. We've got a lot of information pulled together, but our next, I guess, main goal would be to meet with Abby and Kelly to sit down and talk about the tab on the MPART website. So, Abby, would you and Kelly be willing to meet with the group for, let's say, a half hour, 45 minutes in the next couple of weeks?
Yeah, of course. We can
Okay.
certainly do that and talk about the best ways to do that and what
No
kind
problem.
of information and those
Okay.
kinds of things. So, okay.
I'll go ahead and set something up in Zoom and like I normally do for our subcommittee meetings. And I'll make sure that you and Kelly are on it.
Okay.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
if you want to give us a call and check schedules on our end too, that would be helpful.
Okay,
Thanks, Dave.
not a problem.
Great, thanks, Dave. Membership Subcommittee.
I don't think we actually have met, and the only thing that I was going to propose was ways to start building our membership through the COG. And one of the ways was Great Lakes PFAS Action Network has had a couple collaborative meetings. So they have one coming up on Thursday. And we were, no, Wednesday? Tomorrow, sorry.
Yeah, Wednesday night.
So we were going to possibly bring that up, a COG membership. The other thing is maybe we could do it during the same time as Dave's meeting with the preventive measures, to ask Abby and Kelly if they thought we could use the sites from the existing sites of MPART and reach out to those communities and see if they know of people in their community who might be interested in joining the COG. Other than that, that's all I have. I don't know if Daniel and Joe have anything.
Daniel, Joe, anything to add?
No, I don't have anything to add. I think that that's a good start. Yeah, I've been thinking about along similar lines and have been recruiting groups that are in other watershed councils or friends of the river groups around the state, but haven't had anybody take the bait yet, as it were. But I think that those are good groups to reach out to. They're really connected through the communities and are, tapped into all these issues just like we're thinking about. So.
All right. Teresa Landrum, you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you. I know that last meeting or a meeting before that, forgive me, I forget. We had Salah Ali on from Dearborn, and they have a MPART. I mean, they have a PFAS group. So could we reach out to their organization?
Absolutely. If you could get me their contact information, I'd be happy to reach out to them.
Thank you.
Are you talking the Great Lakes PFAS Action Network that Salah's a part of?
It could be already that we just mentioned a minute ago.
Yeah, and I think somebody threw something in the chat if anybody's interested in the meeting we're having tomorrow night with GLPN. So that's in there too if you want to click on that. But I think reaching out to Salah, because I do think we have some people that we can expand our membership, obviously, here.
Right, because I'm a member of that group. I just been juggling. When I go, I'm quiet because they operate really on what is that called? WhatsApp and I think Slag. And so yeah, I get their notifications and stuff sometime. Well, I get them all the time, rather. So yeah, if you guys, I think we got it. We can reach out that way to Salah's group.
Sounds good. All right. Anything else on subcommittees updates that we need to include? Any questions or comments? All right. The next thing on the agenda was, and I'm kind of going to throw this over to, it's got Ian Smith listed here. So I didn't know if Dave was going to do this or Ian or who's going to talk about where we are in the executive director. So whoever wants to take it away.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Ian Smith. I work in the Eagle Drinking Water and Environmental Health Division. I head up our Emerging Contaminants Unit. And in that capacity, one of my jobs is to serve as a liaison between our division and MPART and you folks as well. So I wanted to give a little bit of an update on one particular portion of the Executive Directive 2021-9, being the line-by-line review of the Safe Drinking Water Act. So earlier today, I touched base with our leadership, and they did give me an update to pass along to you all. We are in the process of doing that review. One big early step that we are taking is we are going to be bringing on an external vendor to assist in the facilitation of that process by our division staff. So that contract, I've been told, is very close to being executed. It may have even happened today after I finish talking with those folks, but to my knowledge, it has not yet happened. Once that contract is executed, we'll be meeting with that vendor and making some quick decisions about what is the process going to look like in which we receive external input on with regard to that line-by-line review of the Safe Drinking Water Act. That is likely going to involve a series of external stakeholder listening sessions, as well as some form of facilitated input from the general public. I can let you know in those discussions, they are interested in including the MPART COG as one of those potential stakeholder groups. So in the near future, we will likely be looking for representation from this group in that process. As far as the overall process, the executive directive does ask for our review to be complete no later than the end of 2022. We are aiming for that as of now. That is all I have for you all. I'd be happy to take any questions you have. Thank you.
Thank you for jumping on with such short notice. I appreciate that.
No problem.
Any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. There are supposedly 6 different steps in this thing, which not only takes in account the Safe Drinking Water Act, but it takes on resources and a myriad of other things. Is there anyone within Eagle or the other state agencies that are working on those directives?
I can't speak specifically to them. I do know that there are entities within the state agencies working on those other 5 directives as well. I can look a little deeper into that if you would like, and maybe Abby, Kelly, we could work on having somebody provide updates if that's agreeable.
Yep, definitely.
Okay, thank you.
That'd be good.
Okay, so I guess the question is, Sandy, can we put that down as a action assignment or an agenda item for next month's meeting
Yep, I got it on the list.
to get an update on the other, what I'm assuming would be the other 5 steps?
Yep.
Dave, what's the specific information you're looking for so we can make sure we get the right people?
I guess where I'm going, Abby, is there's the directive on resources. There's a directive on, I know the lead pipes is one issue. But I guess the resources within, the state agencies, organizations, okay? Is this the directive that's you're putting up now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Keep scrolling.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, there's resources. Okay, the education and engagement. That's a lot of activity. The lead mitigation, all those directive steps. Data collection and sharing. Is anyone working on those different steps? And I guess that's the question. And I'll get right to the point. Resources. Abby, we've talked about this in the last couple of months meetings. It was with respect to the notification process is that we know that you and your team are very, very busy. And as I understood, part of this directive was to go out and look, and is there, if you can't hire in more internal resources, is it something that could be contracted? Education and engagement. I mean, that's something that is important to us. We're working on, as us part of the preventative measures subcommittee team. Okay, what's going on? The counteraction, or what activities that the education engagement group section is working on would be something that I think that would need to understand as well, so that we know that we're working, we as the preventative measures subcommittee are working in lockstep with the governor's executive directive. So those are a couple of things. I'm not going to go into every detail, but those are the type of things that I think we're looking for.
Okay, good to know, Dave. Go ahead.
I can make a couple comments, and I'm sorry I had to step away for a second, so I didn't. Ian certainly knows way more than I do, but I can comment on the education and engagement piece of the puzzle. I know that there's a lean process improvement initiative being led by MDHHS, in which Eagle's participating. So looking at education and engagement around particularly lead action level exceedances. And a lot of I sat in on one call, a lot of similar issues to those we discuss here consistently came up in that process. And I do know that I do believe that the resource issue is focused on community water supplies and public drinking water. That's what I can add.
Okay, so Andy, I guess from what you said, MDHHS is working on education engagement on lead and not PFAS. Is that what I'm understanding?
Let me restate it. Yeah, the impetus was for this executive directive was lead, but it's focused on the Safe Drinking Water Act. So that's the frame to put it in. Public education and engagement in the context of the Safe Drinking Water Act. Is that fair, Ian?
Yeah, Andy, that's my understanding as well. I think that's well put. Thank you.
So, okay, so you're talking about lead. So this directive was directed around lead and not necessarily any other contaminant that the state agencies are working on.
No, I would say, I would reiterate what Andy stated, which is that this is focused on the Safe Drinking Water Act as a whole.
But Dave, just to be clear, MPART has not specifically been involved in these actions on this executive directive. It's been mostly being implemented and reviewed by Drinking Water Environmental Health Division in Eagle, as well as DHHS. We've all worked together as a team on the lead exceedances around the state. And so, MPART has not been asked to weigh in on this particular process, although you guys as the COG will be asked, as Ian talked about, to weigh in as stakeholders.
Okay, thank you.
Teresa, you have your hand up? Teresa, are you there?
Yeah, I'm a little confused. Did I hear, okay, I thought I heard correctly, but I guess I'm a little confused. It was around the safe drinking water, but it was focusing on lead. And did I hear they say not in particular PFAS?
True. When the executive directive was written, it was focused around the lead exceedances, but it's written to be inclusive of everything in the Safe Drinking Water Act, which is municipal supplies.
Right. So when we have this conversation around it, because I heard the deadline is end of 2022, we can ask for inclusion of PFAS as input.
To the, yeah, go ahead, Ian, if you've got.
Thanks,
wanna
Abby. I would just say that, so we'll be hearing a broad range of stakeholder input. So I would encourage you, as a representative of this group participates in those stakeholder sessions, to bring to the forefront your concerns about PFAS. Yes.
Thank you so much. That you gave me clear. Thank you.
Mary Blanchard, you have your hand up.
I do. And this is having to do with budgets, actually, for the Senate and the House, because I understand that they are including hundreds of millions of dollars of budget cuts, as well as hundreds of staff positions to Eagle and DNR employees. And I'm wondering if anybody can speak to how that is going to affect when this process here, but also to the notification that's coming up shortly. Thank you.
I can take a stab at that. I guess I'm our best budget person. So we consider this still very early in the process, in the negotiation process. I think our staff reduction, Abby, you might have heard the same number I heard in the same meetings I was in, but I think it was 178 person reduction in full-time equivalents. But it's too early to forecast if that will come to fruition, how it will be distributed, all those sorts of things. So we're not in a position now where we're not in a position now to look forward in terms of how the budget will impact where we're at a year from now.
And I think though we're waiting on the revenue estimating conference, which I believe is next week, Monday, Andy. And so I think then you'll see a bigger flurry of actual discussions in the legislature about what they are going to negotiate for the budgets. So it's pretty early, and we're not freaking out yet, because I don't think that I think in the end we won't see those kinds of budget cuts or staffing cuts. But obviously we'll wait and see. We're not in charge of those negotiations.
And I wouldn't say we've been particularly singled out. These are widespread. I believe they impact other agencies as you mentioned earlier. I think Mary, other agencies engaged in the MPART universe like DHHS as well, but I don't know the specifics on
that.
Lynn McIntosh, you got your hand up.
Yes, Sandy, I'll keep it brief. I would agree with the importance of including PFAS. If I overheard correctly, Ian talked about emerging contaminants, and it seems that PFAS would fit that particularly. I think it's important somehow, if others are interested, as to how we can make our voice known as a group or as individuals to the legislature. I mean, I am so supportive of Eagle, and can only speak to the importance of your jobs and how much you do. And it's like you have to give people money and resources to do the important job they're tasked to do. And I am glad to say that, along with others. And I don't know all the political processes, but if anything, this is important for the CAG to interact and make their voices known. So that's it. I'll leave it there.
Thank you, Lynn. Charlie.
Yeah, thank you. Just a quick question. I'm relatively new to living in Michigan, and I'm curious to know, does do the legislators appreciate it when individuals from an entity such as the COG speaks up on funding matters, or do they detest it?
I guess that's a two-part question. Does anyone know? And I guess my question would be, does anyone care? If they.
Well, yeah, I'd like to jump in there. Yeah. I really feel that it's an additive to the job that they do. So yes, I would say yes. Because many times when we do public hearings, we have that in line about money should be allocated for certain things. And I think they need help and instruction from community that actually know something or where the money should go. Yes.
Thanks, Teresa.
All right, Mary, I can't tell if your hand's still up or if you have another comment or question.
It is, because I do believe that it helps to inform your legislators whether you feel it's problematic to have a budget like that, because of the fact that there are going to be, like Connie had stated, you know, the state is due for $50 billion coming up for clean water things, which Eagle will have a big part of. And we should not be cutting staff at a time when there's going to be all these additional dollars coming in. So I had reached out per Sandy's request to my two legislators, and I'm wondering if anybody can see if anybody from Representative Mueller's office or Senator Ruth Johnson's office is on this call, or any other legislators. Thank you.
I do not know. Do we have any legislative staff or aides or people who park over there in Lansing? Anyone here? I don't believe we do, but I don't know if they are. We'll see. All right, Gail.
Thank you.
As far as whether they like it or not, doesn't matter. On the this helps them make the decision if we make our voices heard. And it also educates the public so they can make their voices heard. Because the more they hear, the more they will be motivated to do what we want.
Thanks, Gail.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Gail. I think that's the theory on how our democracy works, right? So
indeed.
And I'll just jump in, Charlie. I think I would second that. I think the legislators often have lots of great ideas, but having those reinforced from citizens who can help them target the specific groups or the specific needs and really get those resources in a way that's going to be effective is really important for how they might draft legislation. So I think the better the voices, the more concise the problem can be stated to them, the better they can actually affect changes in statute that actually become meaningful to us.
Thanks, Abby.
Abby, is there a way that you and Kelly could send out something to the COG members that would be helpful for us in addressing that with legislators?
That would be fairly inappropriate for us to do.
Okay.
I don't think, my job is not to lobby legislators. And so I think we certainly can talk about needs or potential issues, but I think that those kinds of requests should come from you guys.
No, I understand that, but is there any talking points that you could send out that would be helpful?
Let's talk about that. I guess I don't have anything off the top of my head.
Okay.
Andy's got his hand up. Maybe Andy can help me out here. I'm
great.
Well,
my brain just went blank.
I didn't want to jump the line, but I just realized that Travis, who's the director of our Office of Legislative Affairs at Eagle, is on the call. So I just wanted to give him an opportunity to jump in on the topics we've been discussing, because he's fully engaged on the budget and of course knows what's effective communication with a legislator and what's not. So just wanted to give him the opportunity, invite him to participate if he wanted to.
Come on, Travis, join the party. Get in here. Get in the deep end pool with us.
I'm here, Sandy. I don't have my camera on here because I've got a 3.5-year-old and a 11-month-old I'm chasing around. So you'll have to forgive me that. So For those of you who don't know me, I think many of you probably are familiar with me. I'm Travis Boskell. I'm the legislative liaison with Eagle. So definitely very deeply engaged in some of the things you all have been talking about over the past few minutes, like the budget. So I can assure you that I am working very, very hard because I have similar concerns to what's been discussed here. I think Abby's right, though. I in terms of us providing kind of specific things to members of the COG that could be kind of interpreted as asking the COG to lobby their legislators, I think that's something that might be viewed negatively by legislators and might have the opposite effect. So I think what we could probably do is share resources on folks who share resources with folks on how you can find who your legislators are. And then from there, you know, maybe folks with the COG can kind of develop some of those. So if anyone wants to kind of reach out to me, I'm happy to share with you kind of some of the facts of the matter. But I think where the line probably lies is in terms of it looking like we're actively engaging members of the public, members of the COG on lobbying efforts. So I hope that's helpful for folks.
That is, thank you. And I'm going to give a shameless plug. Our GLPN meeting tomorrow night, we have a whole section on legislation, how to work with legislators and how to lobby. Salah Ali is leading that group. And so I think somebody put the link to that in the chat. If you want to join, please register and come to our meeting. I think it'll be helpful. Okay, let's see. Daniel Brown, you haven't spoke much. Speak up.
Yeah, so Travis, that was helpful what you just said. You know, I think what I always come back to feeling like I want or need, and I understand that there's a line where you don't want a state official to, you know, advocate for something that could be viewed as partisan or political. I think what I always struggle with is trying to find the real practical answers to questions like if Eagle or any other state agency had the capacity to do different things, would that, you know, advance a really practical thing? So I'm just going to make something up. If we wanted to, you know, completely rebuild the entire PFAS website from scratch, you know, would that be helpful or not? And I think beyond that, you know, the COG members, you know, we can figure out, you know, what we need to do to advocate for that in a way that's appropriate. But finding, you know, those real practical things. If there's not enough capacity to do fish testing because there aren't enough labs or what have you, then, you know, that, you know, finding those real practical needs, I feel gives us the information we need to advocate for things, not specifically for an agency, but just to get the work done in a more effective way. So, you know, if there are those like fundamental practical needs to advance the science and our understanding around PFAS, you know, that's helpful. But I understand that, you know, you have to be careful not to, you know, approach the line where, you know, something seems partisan or political. And I will say, you know, so our watershed's covered by folks at the federal and state level that are both very supportive of the work you are all doing and supportive of action on PFAS. We also have some people covering parts of our watershed that are, I would say, pretty plainly obstructionist to the effort. But the folks that are supportive are often asking us similar questions. You know, it's, you know, what are the practical things that we need? Where are the log jams? Do we have enough testing capacity? Do we need, you know, more communication staff, you know, to get the word out? You know, what are the things that we really need? I feel like I've talked enough, so I'm gonna stop there.
Thanks, Dan. Okay, Teresa.
I would just like to make a suggestion regarding how we approach our legislatures. in which we can do this. The executive directive is only 5 pages. If we, as the COG, review it and we see where we feel there could be some input to garner support, and then what we did as me being on the Michigan Advisory Council on EJ, what we did was looked at the screening tool of Michigan, and we saw where it lacked or where it could be improved or what additions could be in it. And then we could and through that measure, we could all read it and feel where we could have input. That would give us our talking points. And then when we sent our letter, we not only sent it to the Michigan Public Advocate Office, we sent it to the head of EGLE, we sent it to the governor, and we sent it to all our legislative representatives, from the state senator to the state rep to the to those folks. So I think that if we do it, look at it, we got some time. I'm not saying that we shouldn't make it a priority right now, but we got to the end of the year, we can work on it. And when we look at it and see what we think it could be more robust, those will give us our talking points. And then we would just CC all of our representatives on the letter.
I love it. Thank you. Abby, you got your hand up.
Yeah, I'll just raise my real hand. I think one of the things that needs to develop here in when we're talking about practical needs for MPART, we're a little unsure how the budget's going to play out. We know that there's going to be $2 billion flowing through Eagle's budget for drinking water infrastructure. We know a lot of that's going to benefit communities hit by PFAS, but there's other parts, there's other monies on the table, and we're not exactly sure where that's all going to play out. So I would just encourage this as an ongoing discussion that we have over the next few months to see what the development's going to look like and where those specific needs might end up falling. Because there might be things, right now, there's no money on the table for additional investigation work. There's no money on the table for, cleanups. But that could change very easily here in the next month or two, depending on what the budget, they're negotiating quite a bit of money that's still left on the table, and we just don't have any way to know how that's going to shake out. So I hear Dan's suggestion. I think it's a great one, but I would just encourage us to continue this conversation in the next few months and see how the budget's going to play out so that we can get a better feel for making sure the talking points are on target and accurate in light of what we might anticipate for a budget.
Okay. Len, I'm going to give you the final thing because we have 3 more things left on the agenda, and we're quickly running out of time. So Len, quickly, dear.
Yes, dear. I think citizens making simple points, whatever the budgets are, is we need money to remediate sites in Michigan. We need money for investigation. We need to fund MPART. And by the way, 5 years ago or 4, there were 3 PFAS sites, and now there are over 210. It's not difficult. I'm going to stop there.
Sandy, may I say something? This is Pam, because I don't know how to raise my hand on the phone call.
Yes, Pam, thank you.
Thank you. One of the things that here when this investigation started in my my area here, we kept saying to the people, and saying we, Gail Dugan and I and the Kalamazoo River CAG, is how imperative it was that the citizens spoke, called legislation, spoke to your congressmen, your senators, to tell them, their concerns and the need for dollars to help fund these type of things. And I don't think actually a lot of people get involved to do that. And I know that here in the Otsego area, we're going to start doing that really hard. Gail Dugan and I working on that, is that they need to hear from, our congressional parties need to hear from the citizens. So I agree with Lynn. We'll never get where we need to be, and with the budget cuts, and it seems like Eagle is getting fewer and fewer, people on the job down here. We only have 1 on an investigation down here working right now. It's not enough. And we need to help, I believe, Eagle, other organizations or, agencies like that, because we need to speak up.
She's absolutely correct. We just had a congressional tour by the chair of the House of Natural Resources, and he wanted us to ask us, where do we want to see the money go from the congressional end for the Environmental Justice Offer Act, as far as cleanup and all of that. So our legislators are the very people that need to hear from us, because we're the ones who actually giving them the information, educating them on the sites for PFAS cleanup, the issue of notification, the issue of investigation. So our legislatures are the people that are civil servants that's supposed to listen to the people. So yes, they need to hear from us. So I totally agree. Thank you.
Let's, thank you, everybody. That was a longer discussion than I thought it was going to be when I put it on the agenda. That's good. Let's move on. I think we're going to do a quick review of the Eagle Ottawa case study discussion, because I think that flows nicely into the public notification discussion that we have been having now for almost a year, I'm sad to say. So I think Rick is not here because I think he's emceeing the Michigan Environmental Council something or other. So somebody was going to talk about Eagle Ottawa, Charlie maybe, and Mary. That who was going to talk about that?
Yep, I think it would be me. Rick did send this recap. Do you want me just to read his recap, or we did discuss a little bit. I covered that in the subcommittee report earlier as well. But I'll read Rick's summary real quick. Engaging the public subgroup met with MPART and MDARD on 4/26, and the slides are included in a separate attachment. The majority of the presentation was by Aaron Asman, who is the site lead from RRD. In addition to Eagle Ottawa, Aaron is responsible for 5 PFAS sites and shares responsibility for 370 Part 201 sites and 56 underground storage tank sites in Newaygo, Oceana, Barry, and Montcalm counties, with Heather Hopkins, also from RRD. Slide 13 has a listing of their responsibilities. Eagle Ottawa is a complex site with highly contaminated soil, in parentheses, 200,000 plus parts per trillion PFOS, and shallow groundwater, 200 to 1,800 parts per trillion of PFOA on 2 large farm parcels known as Hilltop and Longview. PFAS was discovered during the baseline environmental assessment conducted for a property transfer. The Eagle Ottawa Tannery in Grand Haven used the sites for sludge disposal from the mid-1990s to 2006/2007. The sites are currently being used as hog CAFOS, and Lear Mexican Seeding Company is the responsible party. The new CAFO owners installed an activated carbon filter to the livestock feeding well and checked the irrigation wells and found no detectable PFAS on one far and levels below the 201 standards at the other. The animal diet only contains 1 to 2% corn that is grown on the property. There is more site information to collect about soil, groundwater, and food chain contamination. Eagle identified the residential property owners, which I believe was 27, and 35 letters were sent out because not all the owners are present. Other people are using those surrounding the site by plat map searches, collected well log data, and using Western Michigan University for an expedited geological review. The timeline summarized below shows that the residents were notified approximately 30 days after receipt of the data. A total of 127 person hours were spent on the tasks in the timeline. Eagle did an excellent job reviewing the site data and coordinating the collection of additional data with MDARD and MDHHS. Aaron was asked if Eagle could speed up the public notification process, and he felt it was not possible with the current staffing. MPART and RRD staff thought that the local health departments were even more understaffed. There is a timeline. I'm going to skip that. His last paragraph, it states Eagle contacted and met with local health department and MDHHS the week after receiving the data, and the public health action plan was developed with MDHHS 2 weeks after data receipt. We should review the public health action plan and consider meeting with representatives of MDHHS and the local health department to hear their thoughts on early notification of a PFAS investigation. The farm owner used the baseline environmental assessment data to decide to install the carbon filter on the CAFO well supply and limit the use of corn grown on site to feed the animals. The public needs to have access to the same data so they can make informed decisions about the water they are drinking when a PFAS investigation is being conducted near their wells. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary, for reading. Any questions or comments on that? Charlie, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
No, not at this time. I think Mary covered the bases very well.
All right. Teresa, what you got?
My question was, with the farms being exposed and the animals receiving the feed that was contaminated, correct? Is this the farms that they were talking about? They were possibly trying to determine whether they should terminate the livestock?
No, that was in the Highland area, I believe.
Okay.
This is a totally different area.
Okay.
And they are only getting 1 to 2% of the corn that's grown on, and otherwise the animals, according to the slides that were available, most of in fact, all the cows or hogs do not even go on the ground. They are contained within like the barns and that. So they're not where the sludge was actually applied to the property. Connie Boris did bring up in our meeting prior to this that she felt it was very important that the investigation still needs to continue as far as the receiving surface water bodies and testing of possibly fish and other wildlife in the area that will be receiving some of that PFAS as it runs off the property.
So my question goes to, they tested the cows on the other farms. Did they test the animal livestock on this farm, these two farms?
I don't know about that. I don't remember hearing that.
Okay, well, I think that we should ask Eagle to do a testing of the livestock there, because it's a possibility that they were exposed. And so I really think that should be a part of the investigation. I yield.
Teresa, just to follow up on that, the process here, as I understand it, and I am by no means a CAFO expert for swine, but as I understand it, the piglets are in the nursery barn for 30 days. They don't get to leave. They're given food that they eat, and then they go to an intermediate barn for another 4 months, and then they're gone into the food chain. So it's a very short process, and they don't stay very long. So as I understood it, the new owners didn't have animals on the property when we were talking to them. They were switching over and putting GAC on the water in the one barn. So I don't know that we could even estimate, there would be, at this point, I don't think we had animals to actually test, nor did we think that it was warranted just because the exposure would have been pretty minimal since they weren't grazing on the property and, they had, very low percentage of their feed was actually coming from these fields.
Okay, well, I still have a concern because just in case there was a possibility, and if that livestock is going into any food chain, there's always a possibility. So
Yeah.
I strongly suggest that, I know Eagle is short-staffed, but for public protection, that some testing be done on the livestock.
Yeah, we're going to follow up with the farmer and have additional discussions with them on their farming practices and what else is going on. And that's not, for us, that's not the end of the conversation. Connie's absolutely right. We're going to continue to follow up on additional investigation, understanding the full extent of contamination, both vertically and horizontally on the site, and then follow up on the agriculture issues as well. But at this point, we don't have any crop testing. We don't have any animal testing or anything like that. It seems to be a different situation than what we had on the other side of the state.
All right, Connie and then Andy.
For the protection of public health, I would like to see Eagle notify at least folks that are in the downstream area of the contaminated property to be notified either at the same time as the PRP is notified or no later than a week after that.
We've tested, I don't remember, Connie, were you on for the subcommittee meeting when we talked about this?
I think I was, yeah.
Okay, because we've contacted just about everybody in the area that had a drinking water well.
But was that within a week or was that a month?
It was as quick as we could do, Connie, to get the names and numbers and addresses of the people who own the property as well as the people that were actually living there. So that's what we were able to do. And this is pretty quick. This is pretty quick for us to be able to get this all done. This is, going through records and following up with all the necessary parties to make this happen. This is not an easy task.
Andy, did you want to speak?
No, that's where I had a question in terms of sort of developing a common understanding of terms and what we're talking about as it leads into the public notification process. Because I heard your comment earlier in the committee report that the committee felt like the public notification should have occurred at the beginning of the investigation. And I just wanted to understand sort of where in this timeline that would fall, given that there is time required to get the information together, get together with the health department, the state and local health officials, get the addresses and et cetera. So I think this is a useful exercise in sort of coming to sort of a common understanding of where what we're saying when we mean at the beginning of an investigation. Because certainly we couldn't have mailed those letters on December 27th.
I think,
and maybe there's a point somewhere between December 27th and February 4th where it could have happened, but that's why I see these case studies as helpful for us to sort of pick through the bones a little bit and see where the days could be shaved.
I'm just going to speak up here because I never get to raise my hand really quick, is that I think what we're asking for, Andy, and what we've been asking for is that when an investigation starts, the people that are living around it and drinking from that water be notified that the investigation is starting. We don't want another Traverse City to happen. We don't want there to be another 8, 9, 10 month delay. like happened in Belmont, like happened in Traverse City. A month is certainly better than what we had in Traverse City. So if that's the case, we're making progress, but I don't know that that shouldn't be our end goal of a month. I would like to see it personally. I don't want to have another neighbor drink this water while I knew it was contaminated and she didn't know. So that's what we're looking at. So Daniel, go ahead.
I completely hear you and agree with you, Sandy.
So I had a couple of vague questions. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but I just want to get it on folks' radar. So we're getting a lot of questions about particularly farms, biosolids, and how sites like this could be affecting areas, and both private property and natural public areas around contaminated sites. And we still don't have a great sense of how PFAS penetrates to depth, once it's been applied as biosolids over a long period of time. And that's something we're getting with. Those are questions we're getting with increasing frequency as we discover more of these places. The other question I have, which again, certainly not looking for an answer on this, but my sense looking across the country is that in the places where this has been discovered on farms, the farms so far have been generally cooperative. But I'm wondering if you have a farmer that just decides to not cooperate and there's really no enforcement action that's in place, other than Part 201 and things like that. But if it's getting into the food and they continue to, sell the livestock and anything, what protections do we have in those cases if the party's just not going to be cooperative? And then just very quickly, Andy, to your question, about where this would fit, and just going on what Sandy said, which matches my sentiment as well. Looking at this timeline, not going on a specific day, but at that January 4th point, where there's the contact of the farm owner. I don't feel like this is as pressing when you're dealing with farms, but certainly if you're dealing with a polluter, I think that is the point that if I was a resident living next to, say, a chrome plating facility that was being investigated, I would want to know. I do not want the polluter to get a head start on the residents in talking with state officials and figuring out what the sampling strategy should be and et cetera. So that, for me, that would be the point. So I'll stop there.
Charlie.
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in response to Teresa's concern about testing of animals. I did a quick look on the FDA web pages to see what kinds of programs they have for PFAS testing, and it's a little disconcerting. It makes me wonder if our focus on water is it's certainly one of the sources of human exposure, but it makes me really start to wonder about the food supply. Thank you.
Thanks, Charlie. I think we're seeing more and more articles showing that food supply is of concern around the country, but for tonight, we're going to stay focused on what we've got. So any other comments or questions about this? I did hear from everybody on the group that it was a really helpful exercise to go through. And I think there was a lot of learning that kind of occurred on both sides. So that's great. But this kind of brings us back to the public notification issue and just what we had talked about. Andy, you got your hand up again?
Yeah, can I just?
Yeah,
it's consistent with that. And I just because I think these are the conversations we should be having. But back to Dan's point. So in this case, and in other cases, the responsible party knows before we do. So we got to, as I understand it anyway, and everybody on this call knows more about these situations than I do. So the other thing I'd throw out, so we got to just take that as sort of a given and an understood. in this discussion. But while it may not be possible to have the addresses and letters lined up on that moment where conversations need to happen with the responsible party, because that's a part of addressing the site as well, there's other communications that could occur in that time frame. My point being that addresses and letters take more lead time than other forms of communication that might reach a public audience to some extent. I think that's an important point that
like what would you use?
So, well, we notify public health officials. We could do, hold on, Sandy. Certainly in an electronic age with social media and all sorts of things, there's more tools at our disposal to create awareness of an investigation. And there's no reason not to work together as a group to identify opportunities. If our goal is public notification at the beginning of an investigation, I don't know why we would leave opportunities to do that on the table, is what I'm saying.
I think you could do more than one. My mother has no internet in Marcellus, Michigan, and she's 85. So she's not going to do anything other than a letter to her. And a lot of people are like that. So that's why I feel very passionate that I feel like the goalpost keeps moving on this public notification. First, we were told there's too many complex situations. Then we were told letters wouldn't work. Then we were told it's on the MPART site. So I want us to just nail down, are you guys willing to notify citizens when an investigation starts and not wait until you have information at hand in a way that is accessible to everyone, not just certain individuals?
Okay, that's pretty broad and encompassing. So let's break it down. First of all, can we agree that what we did here with this 25 residents is public notification? We asked for 36 letters. We reached out to these people with letters. Aaron went door to door, knocking on their doors to try to get a hold of them through this time period so that we could try to get the residents actually sampled. Does that count as notification in your book?
I don't know how far out he went in this group.
It was at least a mile, because there's only 25 wells in the area, and they're 800 parcel or 800. Yeah, here we can bring it up.
Like I said, this was much better than what happened in Traverse City, right?
Well, yeah, we're learning from
Much
Traverse
better
City.
than what happened in Belmont.
Well, Belmont was the starting point. We had no concept in Belmont. So,
right.
And we still went door to door there, but I guess I want to make sure that we're all talking about the same thing, because for us, notification is going to be centered around those people who are immediately at risk. Not notifying every landowner, but notifying those people at risk.
Yes.
Can we agree on that?
Yes. I'm saying yes. I got Connie and Lynn and Gail with their hands up. So Connie, what you got?
I just want to say that you can always call your local TV station, and then whether or not do it at the same time that you're notifying the PRP. Have the local TV news reporters say it. Most people watch TV and local news, so it doesn't matter if you get your letter or not. You may hear it on TV, but it's good to back it up with a letter. Second thing is, I need to ask a question that's been bugging me for a while. Does Eagle become aware of PFAS sites when you receive a baseline environmental report that says we have exceedances? Or are you purposely looking for chrome, plating plants and other likely sources? Because I'm getting the impression that your PFAS sites are coming from baseline environmental site assessments, not your own independent work.
They're coming from a variety of sources, Connie. BEAs are one form of information and reports that we get into the department as the normal course of business. We obviously go looking for potential sources as well, like we've done through our IPP evaluation, like we've done with some of our chrome platers. So it's a yes and answer. We get it from all kinds of different sources. So we look at all of our different programs and where we have the highest potential for there to be PFAS, we've evaluated those first. So we've done that a prioritization on all of our landfills. We've looked at our highest potential for chrome platers. We've gone through and looked at our airports. We've looked at we're in the process of starting to look at our fire stations. So we're trying to do that prioritization based on the greatest potential for a risk and use of PFAS in the past.
Does any of it come from individuals measuring or collecting a sample of water from their groundwater well and having it tested?
We do have a system set up that if someone submits a sample analysis to the Eagle lab for their drinking water analysis and it comes back high, we get notified through the lab as well as, from the homeowner. We haven't had that situation come back. In the early days, working with Sandy, we had many people that were doing private testing and they would submit their results to us. And so we found many different areas in Sandy's area where that came directly from drinking water analysis from private labs. We always went back out and confirmed those samples, but there were a number of them in that particular area that led us to other issues that we didn't know about.
Okay, thanks.
I'll chime in here. So in the case study of Eagle, Ottawa, when Rick and others asked Aaron about his preferred, what he'd like to see happen in the world, that's immediately where he went. More resources, more education, more outreach to make people aware of when they might want to test their well. So we get those results and we have the 1.12 million people in Michigan who are on private drinking water wells participating in the reconnaissance and identification of potential contamination. And that's something we would, as we turn to the public notification conversation, and this is something that, if you talk to Amy and Kelly, you'll hear about it is, let's put a lot of resources as much as we can find into multimedia, public education campaign to raise everybody's awareness of this as well, with a focus on private well testing.
And Andy, I might be speaking out of turn here, but I'd go so far to say that if there was a windfall of money that suddenly appeared in our lap, I would love to see a wide scale testing across the state of drinking water wells, just to make sure that people are truly consuming safe water.
Lynn McIntosh.
Hold on. Can you hear me now? Okay.
Yep.
Okay. I think we're defining our message. The biggest ask as a group to the legislators, to all the decision makers, is that money is available to test all the private municipal wells in Michigan, because there's over 1 million of them. We owe it to these people to make sure their water is safe. It's time consuming to do it site by site. And Abby, I understand. Some sites get discovered in a variety of ways, and you don't have the resources to do the job you need to do. And that's the next thing that needs to be said. You don't ask this agency, all of you who I know are working hard, and this is clearly an improvement. I want you to hear gratitude in that. But how can you do the work if you're not given the tools and the resources you need? So we need to make that the second point. You're going to build a house, you need materials to build it. We need the materials. We need that money, and we need it now. It's both emergent and it's urgent, and it's important. And so, Sandy, I agree with you. And I agree with what Andy said and also with Gail. But let's do a multimedia thing. As soon as that right away, let's hit it from everything. Connie said, let's get it on the news. Do a press release. Let's talk to the municipality. Let's get it out there, and then also do letters. News travels. And I think we can do that. I really do. And I know that a lot of us have a lot of big asks, but if we can narrow down what the most essential ones are and get behind it, I think these things can start to turn, because we want to work with you and we understand your limits as well, but we can't back down on the essence. That's it. So thank you, and all the Eagle staff who's participating on tonight's call. And thank you, Sandy, for us through this tonight.
All right, Gail.
Okay, I am so glad, Eagle, that you are there. And yes, you are trying to draw blood from a turnip as far as money goes. You don't have any. And I commend you for still doing your jobs and not quitting in frustration. So thank you. And I'm going to pick, I had one question when I initially started, when I raised my hand, is I want to know what your definition was of at risk, or what was that, your criteria for testing people around that farm? The terminology you used?
It was the people that had drinking water wells. So in this particular case, we looked at all the homes with drinking water wells, which there is no municipal water, so everybody had drinking water wells. And we screened them to look at depth, geology, what we knew about those. There were several that were definitely red flags. There were several that were deep. In this particular case, we just decided to sample everybody. We put out letters to, what we say, 36 letters, but 25 residents, because both the landlords and the rental units, if we had those addresses, we wanted to cover. So, you know, every site's going to be site specific, but we would look to make sure we protect and notify those people at risk first. That would be
Okay.
our,
Well,
that was going to be the goal.
That's the terminology I wanted to know. What was your criteria for at risk? This is the lawyer coming out of me.
Yeah, those are the people that are going to be directly consuming the groundwater.
Yeah, okay. How do you know, do you put a bullseye on a map? How do you determine how far out you go?
Well, that's where we've got a whole team of professionals, right? We've got people that are geologists. We've got people that
Okay, there's science involved. Cool.
We called part of this thing was we reached out to Western Michigan, and they've got a geologic survey that can actually do, in cases where we don't have any groundwater flow direction, they can kind of look at the regional topography, give us their best guess for groundwater flow direction and the regional geology stratigraphy. And then, you know, and that's all stuff that Rick, you know, geeks out on, but they'll give us their best guess. And then in the cases where we've got drinking water wells, we're just going to put an extra, you know, inclusion zone on that to just make sure we're being conservative. We're going to be conservative just because, you know,
it's the right thing to do.
It's the right thing to do. And we're, you know, our number one goal and priority is to make sure people's health is protected. And, you know, I want to make sure if we're going to take the time to send a letter, it goes to the right person. And so that's where, you know, we may take a little bit of extra time up front, but we're making sure that we've got the people who are living at the houses as well as the landlords. And if we don't get answers, we're going to go knocking on their doors and calling them. Often we're the local health department and DHHS are calling these people as well as knocking on doors. And even in this case, we only got 16, we got 16 of the 25 residents. So that's not bad. And so far, I don't think anybody's talked about it. So far, we only have one house that has a detection. It is above criteria, but that's the only one. And it is the one closest to the farm.
To the farm, yeah. That is very good, and that is excellent. And that's why I wanted to flesh out that whole definition, because it sounds like you covered your bases, and that is super wonderful. Now I'm going to switch a little bit, and then I will stop for the night as far as speaking. Yes, we do. Along with talking to our legislators, we also have to educate the public, and that can be with newspapers, and also maybe get on NPR or whatever we can get our hands on so that we educate the public as well. And I yield the floor. Thank you.
I would, this would be something else that if we're going to put big picture dreams out there, we want to do a statewide public education campaign. So I'll just throw that out for you guys to mull over, because I think that would be a fantastic use of resources to get the information out there.
I agree, Abby. I think that's a good idea. Tony.
Thank you. I missed part of the discussion about the farm, but I've been involved in these discussions now for well over a year. Discussions, quite frankly, that Eagle in the beginning refused to have with us, and tried to say we didn't even have the authority to talk about. We've come a long way in that regard. But there's a very simple question that I think needs to be answered with a yes or a no. I don't want to hear about the legislature. I don't want to hear about money. I don't want to hear about things that are hard or things that are out of Eagle's control. Eagle has the ability to lead. And this group made a recommendation, a very clear one, that the policy be established, that people be notified, potentially impacted people be notified when an investigation begins. A yes or a no from Eagle. Does Eagle support that or not?
Andy, you want to take it, or you want me to take it? Except you're on mute.
Well, Abby's gonna have to fact check me because I may be misinterpreting terms, but I think we say, yes, we support that. I mean, so if you go, but it's contingent on understanding the discussion we just had about what can happen immediately, what takes a matter of days, but in terms of if you're asking, let me put it this way. We support notifying potentially impacted households, beginning that process when we know of a source and an drinking water exposure pathway.
As soon as possible.
Only a drinking water exposure pathway?
Well, those are going to be the people most acutely at risk.
Okay, let's stop. That's not our recommendation. There are people like me who live on a lake. The entire lake was contaminated. You guys waited years before you told us. Are you going to continue to do that? I mean, we continue to narrow and narrow and narrow and narrow. And I understand that there are things that need to be worked through, but Eagle continues to sidestep the meat of this recommendation and continues to try to narrow it down and turn it into something much less than what it is. Look at the memo that was posted on the MPART website that doesn't even address the issue, doesn't address it at all. And so without really an unequivocal commitment from Eagle, given the history, given the continued efforts to try to sidestep, dance around, narrow the definition, we have to remain pretty skeptical. And so again, we didn't say just drinking water. We didn't say that. So if you're saying no to other than drinking water, we need to know that. I guess I continue to be disappointed at what I hear from the agency.
Our priorities remain on those public and those residents that are going to be most acutely at risk, which would be drinking water. That's where we're going to start. Those are the people that are going to be notified first. We will continue to reach out to other people in other pathways as we go through this process. Everybody gets notified. We're always going to be doing MPART updates. We're always going to be doing public town halls. We're always going to be doing outreach through local officials and through local health departments, but it's not going to be the same process. So we will say it's going to be a yes, but not at the same moment that the residents who are most acutely going to be affected through drinking water are going to be getting those notifications.
I think it's a no, honestly. I think it's a no because you can't say yes to the concept. And that's the problem. I really think it's a no. It's a no because it's been, what, 14 months? And we're still tap dancing around it.
So can I ask you a question, Tony?
Yeah.
So, would it be your position that upon having the sample from that a high sample from a lake, that we begin notifying everybody around the lake via letter and canvassing?
Look, you need to notify people on the lake. Yes.
Okay.
No one has ever said you need to canvass.
Okay.
But what I'm concerned about is that we keep getting into it's wonderful to talk about, how you're going to do things in certain instances. But if you don't commit to the principle, you're never going to get it done. And that's the problem that I've seen here. There has been a strong resistance to the concept. And we keep hearing different reasons why. And so to me, I think you don't want to do it. And I'm not talking to you personally. I'm saying the agency doesn't want to do it because they've never done it that way, because it's going to change the way they deal with the potential polluter. It's going to make the job more complicated. And you know what? And people who have to live with the consequences, too bad. And you're talking to someone who has, and to someone who has heard from Eagle still to this day that it did nothing wrong in Oscoda, Michigan. And so when I hear that, and I hear all the tap dancing that's gone on for 14 months, and I still can't get an unequivocal yes, I don't think you're committed. I think it's a no.
Okay.
So, the concept, I'll just say, the concept of that kind of notification to lakefront homeowners was not how I read the original memo, and I feel like that might be something that we'd like to see. Is that the view of the COG? Is that the view of some members of the COG? Because I had not personally, wasn't thinking through that lens.
Okay, Andy, I have to insert myself in here. This is Lynn McIntosh. I was part of a subgroup who worked really, really hard to painstakingly fill out a chart that covers all of this. Everything that you're talking about tonight. We sat down and worked very, very hard and put it in grid form for your example. We need to know that you see that and understand that, because we've done that work already, which included surface water. So we handed that to you. We don't have an official response. Did a lot of that. We care about water, and I hope you have seen that grid, because if you haven't, it's time to look at it. That's all I'm saying. That wasn't just to keep us busy. It was to focus on who to notify, where, and how. And it gave lots of ideas. So that is the thing that I put out there as, what's your response to that? Because that's very specific. And I'll stop.
Thanks, Lynn. Thanks, Tony. I think that's some of the frustration is we feel like we've kind of done a lot of this anyway. Go ahead, Daniel Brown. You have been so patient waiting in line.
Right. So yeah, I think you're hearing a lot of the frustration, and you know, Tony expressed that pretty clearly, and others have as well. The fundamental point here that I think I just want to really reiterate, and I think this is for me, and I think for many other community members, this is, you know, the source of frustration around this, is if there's enough information to notify a polluter that, hey, we might have a problem here and an investigation needs to go forward, that is a logical moment to notify the residents nearby, the community at large, the public health officials in the county, municipal officials. That is the point where it's like, hey, we might have a problem here. And if you don't do that, it then looks like the polluter is getting special treatment to everybody in the community. And we've seen that play out in several communities across Michigan around several types of pollution. It's certainly the case in Ann Arbor with dioxane. And one of the key reasons that is really problematic for the polluter to get a head start is if they get even additional time to prepare how to inform the strategy, or to enlist a PR firm or start working on their communications, they're getting a head start on the issue and you know, biasing the direction of that whole investigation, even if it's an indirect, implicit way. And so that, I think, is the key thing. If there's enough information to notify a polluter, there's enough information to notify the community around. And I think, I don't want to speak for Tony, but I think that's the point that Tony is getting at. It's that fundamental commitment to that idea. The context around whether it's a lake and there are polluted people on a lake, or if there's fish in the lake that are contaminated, or if we have a farm that has contaminated biosolids, or heaven forbid there's drinking water affected, all of those things will have different contexts, will have different processes for notifying people and so forth. But it's that commitment to the idea that if there's enough information to notify a polluter, there should be enough information to notify the affected community. So I'll stop there.
And I don't think we have a problem with that concept, and agree with you. We do need to notify people. I think our problem was the implementation of sending letters to everyone. If we can have a discussion and come up with ideas on easier ways to get that messaging out, then I think we can get somewhere with this conversation. I just think that in our world, you know, one sample result does not equate notification, but in the cases where you're talking, Dan, of a liable party where we've got a source and it sounds like we've got sample results, you know, that's different. That's something we can actually tell somebody. But there are, and so I think maybe we got to start working through some additional case studies and figure out exactly what it means for you guys to be notified. How would we do this going forward? Because I think, you know, in concept, we're all on the page of trying to protect public health and give people the same tools so that everybody's got the same information. Andy,
I want to ask Tony if he agrees with what Dan just said.
Yeah, actually, Andy, I'd raise my hand to say that I do.
Okay.
And I think that Dan put it, he put it very well. And I really think, first of all, from a public health standpoint, there, as we've seen, I want to just kind of expound on it just a touch, that we've seen that the more the science comes out on this, the more we find that lower and lower levels of exposure and different pathways of exposures are problems. So if we only notify those people who are above MCLs or whatever, that might be good today, but next week or next month or next year or 5 years from now, they're going to wish they were notified sooner. And there is nothing more, I mean, I can't tell you how angry it makes me and others when we find out something that the polluter knew, the state knew, everybody was talking about it and nobody was telling us and we didn't find out for years. You can only imagine how angry that makes people. And you're hearing it in my voice right now, because usually I'm not this angry, but there's also just been a continuing level of denial within the agency. I can't emphasize this enough. It is deep-seated within the organization. And until we get a strong statement from the top saying this is the direction, not let's do how are we going to do it, or we don't have this, or we don't have that, or you know what? It's never going to change. That's where I'm coming from.
Thank you, Tony. I'm going to call on John because he hasn't spoke yet. Joe, I'm not. Joe, go ahead and jump in the front of the line.
Yeah, thank you. I support what Tony and Dan are saying, but I got a kind of word of wisdom for you in the state staff. That is the analogy of a storm alarm that we use in the golf courses. When the storm is approaching, at some point, we send the siren so that all the golfers could be aware of. But then that's one siren. But when the thing actually does not actually arrive nearby, then you send the two sirens to tell them it's okay now, it's safe. So analogy here is, I think the state being a regulatory enforcement agency, you may worry about giving panics or the unnecessary alarms to the residents. But just like a storm alarm, when things turn out to be okay, you're okay. You don't have to worry about having sent a message, a warning. People will understand. So as long as we are committing ourselves to notify the public for potential, risks, I think everybody will be okay. So let's see if we can make a firm commitment with this alarm system kind of concept and help everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Okay, Mary Blanchard.
So my only last comment on this would be that when we were first talking in the engaging the public subcommittee, I came into it later. There had been a lot of work done previously by Ken Harvey, by AJ and others. When I came into it, they had already established the fact that what they wanted was to have a letter that was very, very basic. It did not include a lot of data. It was simply to say that there is an investigation happening that we suspect your house may be impacted. And that was it. It could possibly include information to MDHHS for questions or something like that, but it did not have to have all the data in it. It was just simply an announcement saying this was happening. And I like Joe's idea of you send it out to people, and if it eventually is proven that it is not a contamination in their area, I think everybody would be very relieved and glad to hear that. And end it at that. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary. I put my hand up, so I get to call on myself now. I agree with what people are saying. I think the issue with letters that we all decided is I want to make sure this can go to every community member, regardless of how many resources they have accessible. So I need it to be accessible to people who have access to internet, who don't, who have access to television, who don't. I need it to be accessible to everyone, regardless. So if we have to help you figure that out, I guess we can do that. But I think what everybody is saying is we need the commitment that citizens are as important as potentially responsible parties, and that we have just as much value to this state as they do. So we should be notified as close to that time as what they are. We just can't see another Traverse City go on at this point. So that's what our commitment is to the state. And I actually really do believe that that's Eagle's commitment too. I've worked with enough. Abby, I've worked with you for how long now? I really do believe.
I hope you
I
would
do,
say that,
you know
Sandy.
that. I mean, I really do believe that. This ain't about that, but I can't go to sleep knowing this is going to happen again. So we've gone way over. We got a lot accomplished though, I feel like tonight. Is there anybody else who has a final comment or thing we need to say? Because I need a drink.
I need a drink too. I would just say that I think
Teresa beat us all to it. She just went and got one.
I think in terms of a next step on public notification, I personally like the idea of sort of putting Dan's words to paper and digging in on that. But that would be my suggestion.
Yeah, I would agree. We can, we can start looking through. We got a couple of more things coming up that we can try to figure out how to best do. And if you guys are still I guess I don't want to take this to the point where you guys feel like we've totally given up on this idea. And I'm hoping that you will do the same for us. I want this, the whole reason for the Citizens Advisory Work Group is to have a partnership. And if we've gotten to the point where you guys don't feel like we're in a partnership, then we're all doing something wrong, because we need this for the benefit of the citizens. Because, to Sandy's point, the citizens are the reason that I come to work every day. It's not for this kind of, glory we got going on here. Andy and I, don't get that kind of extra, we're not getting extra bonuses and a lot of fanfare from these jobs. So we're here for the citizens. We're here because we are public servants. And so that's crucial to our job, and our mission is to protect public health. So let's follow up with some additional discussions and work committees, it sounds like.
Okay. I'm hearing you say that I just want to end it with this way. What I'm hearing both you and Andy say is philosophically, you agree that notifying the public is important, and notifying them in a timely way is important. So we have a philosophical agreement on that issue.
Yes.
Okay, good. And let's call it at that. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Definitely.
Thank you, everyone. We'll follow up with more stuff. We will see you in June. Enjoy your spring.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody. Have a good
Bye.
one. Okay, bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Good night. Thanks, Dan.